Hello, Smoking Vapor. Welcome to another video. I want to talk a little bit to the beginners. Well, I want to define what a beginner vapor is. A beginner vapor, in my opinion, a beginning vapor is one that is really doesn't have a comfortable feeling with a vaporizer of any kind, and actually wondering what kind of vaporizers there are. The taste of juice or high voltage, high wattage, clouds or no clouds, PG, VG, understanding that kind of stuff, I believe moves you to the advanced beginner, if you will. But going back to when I was a beginner, some of the things that I wish I understood. So if you're a beginner, if you're not sure if you're using a variable voltage, wattage, if you're using an ego twist, if you're using a mod, if you're, whatever you're using, and you're still unsure about things, but some things that I wish I would have known, and maybe would have got me to a more comfortable spot while vaping. Now, first of all, a little bit about me is when I dig into something, I really dig into it. I'll spend hours reading or watching videos or going to the vape stores that I'm lucky enough to have 3 or 4 where I live, and talking and discussing and getting some questions answered. Now, some of that almost deterred me going to the vape store, that is. There's some folks that are there that are big time vapors and maybe have been for a very long time. And not so much that maybe they forget what it's like, is that the discussions with new vapors are not as interesting as the discussions with experienced vapors. Maybe because they're answering the same questions all the time, they're not really learning anything new, they're not sharing anything new, they're not talking about their double Clapton coil quad hoopah build or something like that. The person coming in just wants to know, tell me about this vaping thing, almost looking for someone to convince them to do it. And I think maybe if someone is at a store and they recently quit smoking, or have someone that recently quit smoking, their reaction might be a little bit different. Anyway, so my experience with that was meeting with some people in some vape stores and really getting put off by them. Luckily, there were more options and more places for me to go to. So my choice, I just didn't go back to that vape store, for a very long time. And when I did, I found out that the mood around that wasn't that different. And I knew a little bit more. I could talk a little bit more about it. But I wasn't one of the regulars, maybe? I don't know. I never stayed around to find out. I didn't ask them. I didn't, whatever. I just didn't go back there. So don't be shy to go to a vape store. And if you don't get a real good experience with one, which I hope you do, and a majority of them are excellent people there, and all they want to do is help, but try a different store or try a different person at the store, or a lot of vape stores you can just hang out in. Heck, we got one that has a pool table and has a cat that chases a ball and huge stuffed animals and coffee, and it's like a living room. It's very cool, and that is the one that I go to a lot. Number one, inventory is really good. The people are very cool, and I'm very welcome. Anyone is very welcome to hang out there. So it's a cool place. So learn what you can. Learn what you can about what you want to know more about with vaping. Many times, what we don't know is scary and or not interesting because, we don't know what we don't know. Now, when you buy things at a vape store, which I recommend you do, and buy as much as you can afford, it's a lot more expensive than when it's online. The neat thing about that is my first that I got was very similar to this here. It was the Kangertech Email. And I have this one to give away to somebody. The email, I didn't know what I was doing. I got there and she said, let me set this up for you. And told me about what she was doing, why she was doing it. It came with 5 replacement coils, so that she said, you're going to have to do this yourself, and here's what you do, and this is why you do it. But if you have any questions, come back, call me, blah, 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 blah. And that was very cool. So I started off on the right foot, but going back in and visiting some different stores, sometimes you just get into some different interesting people. When I started off with my email, oh man, right away I was smoking, I don't know, a pack and a half a day or whatever, and right away, bam, down to 5 cigarettes. I had a very hard time. I mean, really couldn't let go of the cigarettes completely. Maybe I was just not ready to quit. I wanted to cut down, which I felt better almost immediately after cutting down. No, I would say immediately. I mean, not the second I stopped, but the next day I noticed next night, I wasn't wheezing in bed anymore. And just over time, things got better that everybody says gets better. I hung with that for a while, and here's another thing I wish I would have learned. And I guess the information was out there, and I didn't grasp it or didn't learn it or something. The vaping is what's keeping me from smoking, and it's difficult to keep me from smoking, so I vape a lot. There's good things to know about when you start with something like this unit right here. There we go over here. Because I out vaped a coil in that rather rapidly, and I didn't know one thing that wasn't covered. Of course, she couldn't cover everything with me, but I started getting burnt hits, and that really turned me off. And I didn't know why. So I went to a different vape store and treated me like it was something I should have already known. Well, you can't vape that continuously or really hard. You got to give it a chance to re-wick or whatever they said, and I didn't know. And they said, all you got to do is change the coil. And I was like, change the coil, change the coil. How do I do that? This is, within 48 hours of me picking that up. Super excited I was still because, the vaping is so much better than smoking. So I learned about that and went through that, and I primed my own coil and that type of thing. So lesson number one, talk to people, watch videos. Lesson number two is the introduction to vaping piece of equipment that you get may be the only one you ever use. It wasn't for me, and it's not for a lot of people. I think someone put it as we have gadget attainment syndrome or something where we just got to keep buying stuff, or want to anyway. But if you're not getting fulfilled from the battery life or the vapor coil production, because every coil, many coils have different production possibilities. If you want to vape things really heavy, you might not want to use one of the tanks that are on that email. You might want to go talk to a vape shop to find out what you can move to. So that's number two. Number three was the ability to switch juices and seeking the juice that works for me. Now, there's not one. I have multiple juices some juices I mix together to get my own variety in it too. I typically vape at a 6 nicotine, which is the next thing. Was glad I learned about. I started with a 12. I actually had some 18s, and there were some that were, 14s or something. I don't remember. But I started, my first one that I got when I went to the vape store. But you can actually sit down and try different juices, and the juices that you taste at their bar or their tasting corner or whatever it's titled, the little Clarimeisers that you get to taste from are not very powerful at all. And if you buy something there to take home with you and fill with juice, it will probably be more fulfilling than the little tiny things that they give you to do. But I started with a hint of tobacco. It was called Cascade. And that's, from what I understand, pretty typical. You're really not after the sweet stuff. You're not after raspberry fanfare. You're kind of maybe looking for a subtle tobacco. I do know the caramel was appealing to me. A tobacco-y caramel. I can't remember the name of that, but that worked out really well. And I'd recommend getting a couple different juices, because the flavors, once the cigarette cravings are gone and you're vaping for, let's say you're vaping for nicotine, I have reason to doubt that that's completely true, but flavor variances and producing your own, it becomes part of the fun. So you're not smoking anymore. You kind of got this thing going on where you're in control of how much you get of what and at what time you get it, and then actually what method it's delivered, and some things that you can actually make to make that better. With the email that I got long ago, the variance I had on that was voltage control, so I can make it a little heavier, a little lighter. And now there's, you probably heard temperature control, and there's nickel, and there's titanium, and all these kind of, space age things going on, and it's just far out how things are happening. how fast they are. It's almost like a computer back when, you buy a computer one day and a week later they put out a better one or a new one, and you're like, geez, I just bought this thing and it's outdated already. And that is happening with the vape stuff. So some things just don't change. You can increase the voltage, increase the wattage, and just keep yourself from smoking. So that's kind of cool too. Know that you're going to get oily fingers when you're kind of all thumbs trying to make this happen for the first couple days, couple weeks, or whatever it is, or trying new devices. So keep paper towels around you all the time. Wash your hands frequently. E-juice can be sticky, and then you got, not syrupy hands, but you just, your hands just then attract dirt and whatever. So keeping your hands clean when you do this. Plus, you don't get your stuff is fingerprinting if your hands aren't so oily. So that's another one. I guess one of the last things to kind of look at is the end goal. My end goal was not to quit smoking. It was to reduce smoking. What it became for me then is a hobby, to just mess with stuff. And a couple people that I've purchased these same units actually for, because they were interested in vaping, and I said, give it a shot, I'll set you up, type of thing. Not everybody vapes and quits smoking, and that's okay. If you're smoking and then you vape and you reduce your smoking, call that success. If you quit your smoking, call that fantastic. The intimidation of the stories that I hear anyway. I bought this and walked out of the store and I didn't touch another cigarette since then. And good for them. Good for them. My dad was that way. One day he just quit. Some people could do that, and I think it really matters is why you want to quit, and if you want to quit. And eventually, maybe you will or maybe you won't. It's not for me to tell you or anybody else to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. We all know cigarettes are bad for you. Heck, the whole world does, but they're legal anyway, go figure. If you do quit, great. If you find a new hobby, great. If you don't quit but you smoke less, super. If you buy some vape stuff and have a ball, fantastic. Smoking is disgusting. It's expensive. It's gross, it's looked down upon, you gotta sneak outside and stand in the rain and roll your window down and all these, you can count the number of reasons why you shouldn't smoke. And then you can justify that to, oh, great heaven, because, it calms me down. You never know somebody at all and you go outside to have a smoke and somebody else is there, you can just talk to them like you know them, for the most part. I can't do that with any other group of people. What your goal is you. What my goal is me. And if any of us can help each other, that's totally awesome. If you want to quit and you're having a hard time, let me know about it. If you don't want to quit and you have questions about new vaping and what you should try and that type of thing, I would have some ideas. By no means am I an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a vapor. I like to do what I do. And if you want to share with me what you do or what's worked for you, that'd be awesome too. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And heck, if you're really completely broke and you need to start, maybe I can get this thing off to you. So just let me know. That's about all I got from now. I'm going to soon I'm going to come back and talk about this couple new things that I got. But I'll show you some of the graduated and price points, at least what it was. We'll look up what it is now. To move out of just a single mod type of thing, if you want to have something a little more powerful, last you a little bit longer, carry 2 or 3 juices around with you, tanks of juices, if you will, and then maybe we can move forward that way. So that's very good. If you have any questions, put them down below, and until we meet again, thanks for watching.